Hello and welcome. This is Thursday's edition of The Brief. Thanks for joining me. I'm Jessy Chahal. On the program today, joining me as usual is Crisis Management Analyst Nordin, Abdullah. Today we will speak about the Ukraine humanitarian crisis as well as explore how Malaysian businesses are readying themselves to live with COVID-19, the new norm indeed. And shortly after, I'm joined by AZMI HASSAN, Geo-strategist at the Nusantara Academy, to discuss the Security Offences Special Measures Act 2012, or better known as SOSMA. But first things first, let's now begin with the news in brief. Here's an update from today's Parliament session. The mechanism on compulsory health screening for all members of the DEWAN RAKYAT will be discussed further very soon. We heard today Tan Sri Aziz and Harun has accepted the Health Ministry's or the Health Minister's proposal, Kari Jamaluddin's proposal, to make health checkups compulsory for all members of Parliament. And His Majesty, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, has given his consent to the 4 laws that were passed during the last second meeting of the 4th session of the 14th Parliament. Meanwhile, the tabling for the second and third reading of 9 bills in the order paper has been postponed to the next sitting. The Deputy Minister in the Prime Minister's Department of Parliament and Law, Datuk Mas Ermiyati Samsudin, submitted the motion for the postponement in accordance with Standing Order 62. And in local news, Malaysia must strengthen the SME ecosystem, especially with regard to early stage financing. According to the Minister in the Prime Minister's Department of Economy, Datuk Sri Mustafa Mohamad, supporting SMEs and providing early stage financing is vital to facilitate productive and innovative firms. With all that happening in the meantime, the swearing-in ceremony for the new lineup of the Johor State Executive Council members is expected to be held this weekend on Saturday after getting consent from the Sultan of Johor. Menteri Besar Dato' On Hafiz Ghazi says the ceremony will be held at the Audience Hall of Istana Bukit Serene. And the Defence Services Asia and National Security Asia 2022 exhibitions are seen as the best platform for the Malaysian Army to compare the best and latest defense assets. According to the Army Chief, the armed forces can see the advanced and high technology assets from other countries for future reference through these exhibitions. This exhibition will be held from March 28th right up to March 30th at MITEC, or the Malaysian International Trade and Exhibition Centre. And this just in a quick update from the DEWAN NEGARA. DEWAN NEGARA was told earlier today that 4 new undersea cables are currently under construction to help meet the network needs in Malaysia. Communications and Multimedia Minister says the 4 cables are the Bay to Bay Express cable system by Facebook in collaboration with Time.com Berhad as a landing partner in Cherating in the first quarter of next year. Well, for our daily crisis update, I'd like to bring in Nordin Abdullah now, our crisis management analyst. We talk about 2 things, but firstly, Nordin, welcome back. Let's look at the Ukraine humanitarian crisis. WHO just yesterday warned that the humanitarian crisis unleashed by Russia's month-long now war in Ukraine is just the tip of the iceberg. This is worrying enough. WHO Emergencies Director cited this, giving us some numbers. 3.6 million Ukrainians have fled the country. An estimated 6.5 million are internally displaced, and a further 12 million have been affected by the conflict in total. Roughly half the population has already been impacted by the month-long war now. Nordin, given these numbers, what does your projection look like? What is the the path in terms of this crisis?
Well, Jessy, definitely this is just the beginning. If anyone thinks that this is going to be a short conflict or a blitzkrieg war, I think we're sorely kidding ourselves. This will be a drawn-out war of attrition. And we've got to look at the political objectives of both sides, and those will then look at the military objective of each side, which will then, and the unfortunate victims in this case will be the average persons in Ukraine. When we look at the internally displaced and of course those who have already fled the country, we're talking about almost coming to a quarter of the population. To put that into the Malaysian context, that's everyone in Selangor, Walaya, Putrajaya, and Negeri Sembilan would have to have moved from where they are. So that's the kind of numbers that we're talking about here. So it's a massive humanitarian operation that's going on while the war is going on. So we're going to see this continue for some time until such time that there's unfortunately no more refugees, and the only people left in Ukraine will be the ones actually fighting the battles. And that, of course, means the economy will be destroyed. Ukraine's ability to produce things will be also completely wiped out because the population won't be there to produce these goods. And I think that's going to be the long-term impact of this humanitarian crisis.
Absolutely. There's a lot of things to consider here. This is officially a refugee crisis, and nearly 1 in 4 people in Ukraine have been forced out of their homes since this crisis began late February. We're a month in right now, and of course, these numbers seem to be rising as well, Nordin. With that in mind, I'd like to seg into this. Some headlines I'm reading now. Malaysian businesses need to be ready to live with COVID-19. It seems something quite obvious. It's the new norm. We've come a long way, and that milestone date now, April 1st, will be testing waters for the business sector. Basically, it's game on with just about a week to go. What are your thoughts on what should be on business industry players on their to-do list as they resume and officially open for business, especially to tourists and other international guests?
Well, the first thing on the to-do list should always be, there are still SOPs that need to be adhered to, and to understand as an organization those SOPs and make sure that all the people within the organization understand that. So take this week to gear up all your staff to understand what the new regulatory reality will be. On the next step is what will the opportunities be now that the economy is opening up? And what we've seen, and the recent surveys have pointed to this, is the need to shift to digitalization and trying to reduce, in fact, the need for the amount of human capital needed at points of contact. Where we're trying to reduce the amount of physical contact while trying to still deliver services. The only way to do that is through digital technologies and looking at reducing the HR footprint as much as possible. At the same time, we're going to see tourism start to take off. And that's, for me, one of the most exciting sectors, simply because the amount of people that you have to employ to get the job done properly, all the way from the airlines through to hotels, resorts, logistics companies, and tour operators and restaurants will then see an increase. Of course, Malaysia needs to address things like productivity and especially in the restaurant sector to ensure that there's enough people in those restaurants to deliver the goods and services. So now we're talking about increasing the minimum wage. Now is the time for corporations to realize, yes, you're going to be able to make more money. You need to start paying people a little bit more because you're not going to get cheap foreign labor to be able to do that.
Right. In the months prior, you and I have spoken at length about businesses, and one thing that kept coming up was resilience. And now it's time for businesses to have to be agile and to have speed, really, to be able to handle the influx that is impending. I want to just quote a quick survey by E&Y, Ernst & Young, and they say out of the survey number, out of 500 companies, which of course include large companies as well as MSMEs, 86% were found to be ready to live alongside COVID-19. And out of that, 77% are prioritizing technology, as you've mentioned. This now has become sort of the major new norm for companies to fast track their businesses. Having said that, on the flip side, there is another report that I'm reading that Malaysia's financial services sector is also seeing significant growth in terms of M&A, mergers and acquisitions. What is this saying about shaping business in the near future?
Well, Jesse, what I see is a need to do a rapid gap analysis on what technology you need and what are you delivering to these new set of customers. We've got to imagine that the customer has also evolved over the last 2 years. So they are no longer the people you were dealing with 2 years ago, simply because they also have become more accustomed to using technology. They have also started to realize the importance of social distancing and all these things around hygiene. Which are all actually very good things that bring Malaysia up to the global benchmark levels. So for SMEs now, they need to start to invest. And how do you invest? Is either you have the resources to do that, but if you've just spent the last 2 years barely surviving, you then need to get your hands on capital so that you can invest into these technologies. That will mean you need to borrow this money to be able to expand. So now the narrative for MSMEs and SMEs and even GLCs will be about how to get the resources. And part of that is financial resources, some of that is human capital, and the other is hardware, to be able to take advantage of the new opportunities that will happen as the economy opens up. And it's about being rapid. It's about being resilient. And it's being, the reward for surviving the last 2 years of this crisis.
Absolutely, Nordin. As we've seen, the momentum perhaps is going to continue now, especially as we move into the endemic phase, of course, with borders opening up as well. This only goes to show that Malaysia's business landscape has undergone some amount of change, and businesses have re-examined. They have looked at their strategy. Some have come together to be stronger in numbers, all in pursuit of growth, or perhaps recovery first and then growth. Nordin, we will look to you for more information and more expertise in terms of crisis in the following days. In the meantime, do take care. Nordin Abdullah, the crisis management analyst, joining us and weighing in on a little of some of the headlining issues. It's time now to take you into business in brief and what's happening in business. For example, for starters, the ringgit opened lower against the US dollar today as the greenback continued to strengthen amid uncertainties over energy security in Europe. As of 9 a.m. earlier today, $1 stood at 4 ringgit and 23 cents. At the Bursa, it remained in negative territory at midday as concern over geopolitical tensions has led to a considerable rise in market risk aversion. As of 12:30 p.m. today, the FBM KLCI lost 2.24 points to 1595.64. And moving on, a quick update on gold. As of 9:30 a.m. today, the physical price of gold stood at 255 ringgit and 77 cents per gram. And locally in business, the Malaysia External Trade Development Corporation, in collaboration with Malaysia Airports Holding Berhad, is building bridges with Turkish companies by launching an e-gallery at the Istanbul airport in Turkey. In 2015, the total value of trade between the two countries stood at $1.4 billion, which then very quickly increased to $4 billion come the year 2021. Internationally, last year, South Korea's exports of snacks hit a record high with fluctuating demand, with people stuck at home amid the pandemic and the popularity of Korean pop culture, K-pop. According to Korea Customs Service, the exports of snacks came to an all-time high of $466 million last year, up 13.1% from the year before. Snack shipments also rose to 75 million in the first 2 months of this year. Well, with all that happening in the world, we have to look internally as to what is happening here in the country as well. I'd like to bring in AZMI HASSAN, a Geo-strategist with the Nusantara Academy, to tell us a little bit more about what's going on here. AZMI, UMNO is calling on the Ismail Sabri administration to review its Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, with Pakatan Harapan after the Home Ministry's motion to extend a provision under the 2012 Security Offences Special Measures Act, or SOSMA, was voted down 86 to 84. At least 3 UMNO members, Deputy President Datuk Seri Muhammad Hassan, Secretary General Datuk Seri Ahmad Mazlan, and UMNO Minister Tan Sri Anwar Musa, claim Pakatan's non-support of the bill was tantamount to a breach of the MOU. So here we are now. SOSMA is a law that allows for detention without trial. It allows for a person to be detained for security offences for up to 28 days after the initial 24 hours following the arrest. But for this purpose of investigation, walk us through SOSMA from your viewpoint. Essentially, what does it mean? At this point, we also know from July 31st onwards, subsection 4, paragraph 5 under SOSMA will allow for people to be not be held for up to 28 days without trial. AZMI.
Yeah, Jessy, I think I'm feeling quite frustrated what happened in Dewan Rakyat yesterday because SOSMA, the subsection, as you mentioned, 4.5, especially the detention of 28 days without trial, without bringing it to court, I think that's a problem. There are issues before this because the 86 that the opposition who voted down for this particular amendment or particular subsection is because they accuse that the government abused this particular subsection. But the problem is that when there is a problem, can you talk about it? Can we amend it so that everybody's agree? Because this is not politics issue. This is our security issue. Now, what happened in 2019, Jessy, when Christchurch, there was a terrorism act in Christchurch, 50 people got killed in the shooting. Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister, introduced a new harsher act, meaning that they want an act that can deal with terrorism, a harsher one. But the problem with us is that politics play into part. When you mentioned about the MOU stated by a few UMNO leaders, I think that's a small thing. It's a non-issue. The bigger issue is the SOSMA, PDRM, the police. I think we have curtailed their tools to deal with terrorists. Because to deal with terrorists, Jessy, you can wait until it happens. You need to act before it happened. So without that subsection 4.5, I think the power of the PDRM, I think, has been curtailed just because, sorry to say this, Jessy, because certain groups are playing politics. They are very partisan. That's what made me saddened. That's what made me angry, Jessy.
That's right. You said you were frustrated. AZMI, take us through what's the thought process, the motion, the reason behind SOSMA. The Americans have something similar. If not mistaken, it's called the IRTA. There's another, the TBA. Walk us through some of the similarities and differences.
The Americans, after the 2001 September 11, and when they invade Iraq and Afghanistan, before that, they introduced a terrorism act just to deal with foreign terrorists. And last year, they introduced a new act, which is called, I'm not sure whether DTPA, I think it is called, just to deal with domestic terrorism. You know what happened January 6th in Capitol riot last year, I think that made the Americans wake up. Now, the good thing about this American representative, both in the Congress and also in the Senate, they support it, whether it's a Democrat or Republican, because they see this is a non-political issue. This is about their security. It is about their sovereignty. So both sides of the divide support it. But in our case, Jessy, as you mentioned, 84 support, 86 go against. It is clearly following the line of the opposition and the government backbenchers. That's what makes me really not sad, as I said before, sad, angry. But may I add another term, Jessy, flabbergasted. You know, I'm so angry with this politician because they are thinking of politics. So the end result of it, we, the people, Jessy, suffers because the curtailment of the police that they can deal with terrorists. It's a very sad day, Jessy.
That's right. The police say they will comply with Dewan Rakyat's decision to not extend the Security Offences Special Measures Act, or SOSMA, provision on detention without trial, according to IGP. But also, following our discussion, AZMI, help us understand a little bit better, with Section 4, Para 5 of SOSMA, only 84 MPs supported the renewal when a block vote was called. Why? For the 84, why? What should I and the Rakyat know about this? Perhaps let's start with what is a block vote.
Yeah, a block vote is a vote as opposed to the voice vote, where the most noise made is the winner by shouting or whatever it is, saying yes or no. But the block vote is each individual MP, their vote is counted precisely. That's where the number 86 opposed to this particular bill, and 84 that supports this bill. But what questioned me, what made me curious is that there are only 86 plus 84. Where are the rest of the MPs? Which is exactly number 50 MPs are not present during the voting process. I'm sure the Home Minister knew right from the beginning, before the first reading yesterday, I think he knew that the opposition won't support the bill. But again, where is the other 50? At least if
there was 31 government MPs who were not present during the vote.
No, 50. Because if you add 86 plus 84 plus 50, it is a 220 members of parliament. So 50 did not attend this particular session. And I think that's one of the reasons. Because if the government knew there is some opposition of this particular subsection, why did not they do something to ensure that at least half of the 50 will be there, so that the bill can go through? But again, I don't know why. Where is the 50?
Okay, so, a few things about SOSMA. A police officer may, without warrant, arrest and detain any person whom the police officer has reason to believe to be involved in security offences, and the person arrested will be informed as soon as may be of the grounds of his arrest. He might also be detained for a period of 24 hours on purpose of investigation solely. About the 86 MPs who voted against this, is there something more that we are not seeing that they are?
No, Jessy, I think they have merit why they are going against, especially on the 28 days of detention without trial. Because there are a few examples before this. A number of individuals or a group have been detained using the 28 days subsection detention without trial. No, they have merit. These 86 opposition, when they voted, they have merit. But the question is, why don't they talk with the government so that to improve it? For example, after 7 days of detention, maybe this person, the individual that has been in detention, can be brought to meet a judge, to the court. There must be a way to do that. But again, there's no talking with the opposition and the government. And you're talking about they are having an MOU. And what's the use of MOU if you are not talking with each other? So I think it boils down that it comes to politics, Jessy. It's all about politics. And I think the IGP, when he said he can use PDRM, can use other means to detain, to deal with terrorists, I think he is being very, very diplomatic. I'm sure they are very frustrated because the most important tool that they have been curtailed. Why? Because politics want to play politics. So that's the reason I'm very, very frustrated, Jessy.
AZMI HASSAN, thank you for your time. We'll speak to you again. That was AZMI HASSAN, Geo-strategist with the Nusantara Academy. Now, according to the Home Ministry, a total of 374 individuals have been detained under SOSMA from January last year to September 30th. Well, it's time to move on into international updates. So here's the latest update on the China Eastern Airlines. Police are currently recovering 2 black boxes of the flight, which crashed into a mountain on Monday. According to the Civil Aviation Administration of China, the recovered black box is believed to be the cockpit voice recorder and is being sent to Beijing for decoding. Investigators have said that they will continue to search for the flight data recorder, the other black box. In the meantime, yesterday the Taliban backtracked their decision to open up high schools for girls, announcing them to remain closed until a plan in accordance to Islamic law is drawn up. Students and teachers were ordered to return home, leaving students in tears while drawing major criticism from humanitarian agencies and rights groups. Now on to the world's response to the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. Pakistan calls for a ceasefire in Ukraine, suggesting that Islamic countries and their ally China mediate in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Pakistan's foreign minister stresses on the need for the establishment of humanitarian corridors to ensure safe movements of civilians and humanitarian supplies. He's also added that the OIC, Organization of Islamic Cooperation, is ready to support and facilitate dialogue between Russia and Ukraine. And in the meantime, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison has been raising concerns about Putin's plans to attend the G20 summit in Indonesia sometime this year. Russia's ambassador to Indonesia says that Putin intends to attend the summit, dismissing suggestions by some G20 members that Russia could be barred from the group. And from Australia to Poland, Poland is expelling 45 Russian diplomats suspected of working for Russian intelligence, an accusation Russia claims is baseless. The Foreign Ministry says that the reason for this decision is due to the embassy of the Russian Federation employees undertaking activities against the Polish law. This is done by conducting activities inconsistent with the status of diplomats. The 45 identified diplomats have been ordered to leave the territory of the Republic of Poland within the next 5 days. Well, here's what's trending on Twitter. In badminton, Swiss Open 2022 trends with Twitter users cheering on the performances by Malaysian shuttlers. In the meantime, Malaysian fans of pop star Justin Bieber are absolutely thrilled with the announcement of his Justice World Tour in Malaysia, set to take place at the National Stadium come 22nd October 2022. Well, of course, that trending hashtag is hashtag Justin Bieber and hashtag Swiss Open 2022. Well, that's all the time I have for this edition of The Brief. Thanks for watching. Keep it locked on to Bernama TV for more updates coming your way. Till I see you next time, take care. Bye-bye.